What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. So, relatively speaking, it's been a good while since I've played World of Warcraft, and there's a saying that goes, you never truly quit WoW, you just take breaks, and I think that applies to me a lot based on my track record for the past 15 years, because I always find myself coming back and playing this game, including recently, and to be honest, I've been having a lot of fun. I've mostly been playing WoW Classic, though I've thought about maybe checking out retail because it's at the end of the expansion, and usually at the end of an expansion it tends to be a little bit of fun to mess around, so I might even hop into retail and see what's going on. It's been long enough now. I know that when I quit playing, I was kind of feeling like I was done with the game, and that was about a year ago, and I had just recently been feeling like I wanted to play the game, and there's kind of a reason why I wanted to do that, and it's partially why I'm making this video. So a couple weeks ago, my whole household came down with COVID, and it was pretty scary because that would include myself, my wife, and our son, who is just under a year old, and it happened so fast. Next thing we knew, we were all feeling it, and yeah, it was a little scary because, of course, our baby is really young and getting COVID and babies, and it's just a whole scary thing, of course, and of course, on top of that, we're not feeling good, and overall, it went fine. I'll just get that out of the way. Our son took it like a champ. He was just minor symptoms, very mild for him, not that big a deal. A little fussy, but no crazy fevers or anything concerning. It's just, just watching him, but on top of that, watching ourselves, because for us it was a little bit more intense. My wife and I both felt tired, especially at first, and then sore, and then it turned into like some upper respiratory stuff that for me got really bad for one day. Like, it wasn't like, ooh, I need to go to the hospital, but I just felt really awful and really sore from all the coughing, so that was kind of scary. But overall, we got through it okay, and then after that, it was just a few days of like just feeling like we had a really bad cold. And then we both woke up and bam, it was like, what's COVID? It was just gone. It left as fast as it came. But either way, yeah, it was a rough week, nothing too horrible. We're very thankful that we all came out of it on the other side just fine. But yeah, so that was kind of a thing that happened. And during that time, I don't know how you guys do when you get sick. When I get sick, I always think of being a kid and staying home from school and watching like The Price is Right. Like, that was always what I would do, and that's what I remember. Nowadays, like, I don't know if you guys do this, but whenever I don't feel good, I always look to comfort. If I'm physically able to still kind of function somewhat, I just try to do things to get my mind off of it, and so I always go to video games, which is what I do for a lot of things. So I have my comfort food, which is pizza, and then I usually have some Mountain Dew to go with that, and then I have video games to complete the healthy lifestyle. And this time, there was one game in particular I wanted to play, and you can probably guess what that was. It was World of Warcraft, and specifically, I wanted to play WoW Classic. That was just the game that I wanted to get into, and WoW's not the only comfort game for me, but I've come to realize that it is one of the big ones for me. I tend to find comfort in games like Zelda and Mario, games that I played a lot as a kid, and games that I still enjoy. That's a key, aspect of it, of course. But I always go to those types of games, and there are a few others as well. But WoW is a big one, and WoW is a very unique and special one because, unlike those other games, I get a completely different feeling when I'm playing WoW. And the best way that I can describe it is, whenever I'm playing WoW, I get that feeling like I'm home. My wife always talks about, things that remind her of being a kid. And even though, like, our house is home now, sometimes, like, when she goes and visits her, we go and visit her parents, which is where, she grew up, she gets some feelings that are comforting for her. I think that's common for a lot of people, especially if you grew up in one house your whole life, which is not something that I can relate to, but I can understand. And it's a very similar feeling, at least I think, to how I feel when I play World of Warcraft. And so it got me thinking about it a lot. Like, there's kind of a reason why I come back to this game, and there's something about it that, even though I'm not a big fan of the people that maintain it and develop it nowadays, and even though I'm not a fan of what they're doing, and I may not even like the direction that the game has gone in over the past few years, there is still something about it that is special to me. And I was talking with my wife about it a lot, and I even got a little emotional because it brought up some memories, and people talk a lot about when they play classic WoW, especially classic WoW, that it's all nostalgia, that it's just people chasing a time from the past. They want to go back and relive those days. And I can tell you that, at least for me, that is the last thing that I want to do. I do not want to relive the days of when I was playing WoW back then at all, because those were some of the worst days of my life. But WoW, during that time, was a key thing that got me through it. And I think that feeling of being home and feeling safe and feeling like I'm in my sanctuary, I think that's what WoW sort of became for me. And I thought I would share that experience with you guys a little bit. I apologize because this video might get a little personal. It might get a little deep into my personal life from a certainly difficult time, and that's not something that I like to do very often. I tend to be a very private person. I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I don't like to trouble people with my problems. I don't like to come across like I'm whining or whatever, woe is me. It's none of that. But sometimes I think that maybe if I share something that people can either relate to it, or maybe it can encourage people, and so I kind of thought maybe I would do that today. And so, WoW, we'll get into WoW, but first there's like some setup I have to do. So I'm not going to sit here and cry too much about my childhood. I'm just going to say that I didn't have a very easy one. It was a very difficult childhood, but I've known many people that have had rough childhoods and many that have had ones that were even more difficult than mine. But having said that, mine was not very easy. I grew up in a home with a lot of drugs and alcohol and, even some violence. I'll just say that much. I won't get too deep into it. But eventually something changed. My mom and the man that she had been dating for a while both cleaned up their act. There was something that happened in our life that kind of was the catalyst for that decision. And the way that they did it is that they started going to church, and it kind of changed them, and that was kind of how they got to being sober and drug-free. And that lasted for a really long time. They got married, and we kind of lived a somewhat normal life for several years. I developed a really close relationship with my stepdad, and my relationship with my mom had gotten better, and things were a lot better during those years when I was probably, a teenager, graduating high school. Around that time, things were a lot better. Of course, I was struggling because I was doing my best to figure out life, and when I graduated high school, it was kind of difficult to figure out how to navigate life because I have such a severe visual handicap. And some people it's easier, some people it's more difficult, and I was one of the people that was struggling because where I lived, there wasn't a lot of public transportation opportunities. In fact, the place that I lived didn't even have a bus stop nearby, which was very limiting. And so I was dealing with a lot of those limitations and trying to figure out where to go in life, literally sometimes, but also just trying to figure out what to do with my life. And so for a little while, I kind of felt lost. I was just kind of there trying to think about what to do and really didn't have a clue, to be honest. And so I was involved with my church a lot and with my family and did a lot of things. Unfortunately, though, these good times were not meant to last, because one day at work, my stepfather, who was a construction worker, fell and broke his back. It wasn't like a major break, but it was still pretty painful, and he had to go through some rehabilitation. And of course, this was during the time in the mid 2000s when doctors were heavily over-prescribing prescription narcotics. And so when you give an ex-drug addict prescription narcotics, it's oftentimes a recipe for disaster, and that's exactly what it was, unfortunately, for my stepdad. And very, very quickly, but also kind of slowly, if that makes sense, the drugs started to take hold of him again, and he fell off the wagon. And it wasn't very long when my mom followed him. off the wagon. And so, having grown up the way I did, I knew where things were going. And so, I felt very uncomfortable and very scared about where this was going to end up and where I was going to end up because, of course, I lived with them and I loved them, but I was also very scared because I knew what drugs would do to them and what that would do to us and do to the home that I was living in. So it got very scary. I felt very lost and very trapped, and I started to notice changes in how things were going in the home. And it was a home that I was in a lot because I really didn't have any other options. So I was trying to figure out what to do with life and trying to figure out if I could maybe go to college, get a degree or something like that. And back then, what I really wanted to do was to be a minister, because in my life, my faith was always a big source of strength. I have been through a lot of challenges in my life and a lot of challenges as a visually impaired person as well. And I always felt like that my faith got me through that. And so I wanted to become a minister because I wanted to help other people that were struggling and maybe share my experience with them and then help them through life. As even though I was still figuring it out, I felt like I was everything was going to be okay. And I had learned how to have hope even in dark times, which is kind of a theme here. But and so I did online schooling, right? And so that's kind of what I did. Of course, I had to pay bills, at home, even though I was living with my parents. And people might feel differently about this. I had to pay bills. I had to pay rent. I had to pay other things. I had to buy certain things for myself. And, so there was that. And then I was also trying to put myself through school. So I literally went through Bible school buying one class at a time. That's how I kind of did it. And so, but at the same time, I wanted to have a backup plan. So I also tried to go to community college, and I went to be a graphic designer. And of course, I was able to get financial aid for that. So that one was covered, which was kind of nice. But the challenge, of course, was public transportation. Since there wasn't a bus stop near me, I had to rely on a program where they would come and pick you up and take you where you needed to go, which is great on paper. Unfortunately, there were a number of times where I was left stranded at school, or I wouldn't get picked up at all and I would miss out on school. And some of my professors didn't like that and didn't accept that, and which is, I guess, somewhat understandable. If you're missing class, it's kind of hard to pass you, Even though I was trying my best and getting all my work done, it still was not cool for a lot of the for a couple of the teachers. Most of them were fine with it. And so it became very difficult to succeed in school just because of the transportation issue. But I was doing my best. And then something happened where it just kind of, things started to get a lot harder at home. And then my aunt, who I was very close with, someone that I had basically been raised by in sort of a mother figure in my life, passed away. And it was a very hard time because she was someone that I cared about very much. And it was one of those, anchors in my life and one of those people that I could rely on. And, my support system was kind of getting smaller and smaller as my home life was getting more volatile. And I was finding myself with very few friends and very few options in terms of where to go and what to do. And so when that happened, I was just kind of I remember it was around the time that my aunt died, and I saw this episode of South Park, and it was about World of Warcraft, and I was like, whoa, that's what World of Warcraft is? I need to check that out. So that's when I got WoW, and I started getting into WoW at the time. And, so I was going through school, and anytime I had free time, I was playing World of Warcraft. I had, made sure that I bought my own internet, so that way the bill would never lapse. And so, what little money I had left, I was, using to buy internet and also pay for WoW. And so that's kind of all I would go to school, I would go to church, and then I would play World of Warcraft and kind of lock myself in the room away from all the mess that was happening and, played WoW, you know what I mean? And it was a big help for me at the time because I didn't realize how much of an escape it was. But, I would kind of take it everywhere I went. I'd be playing it and just kind of, doing that because I really didn't have any other options. Like I said, I couldn't really go anywhere. I didn't have a whole lot of friends at the time. And so I just played a lot of the game, aside from like studying and making sure I was getting my work done, and whatever, and trying to figure out my life. So as I kept playing, I started to meet more people, and I would go from one group to another, and there were a couple of cool groups that I played with for a little bit, but eventually I settled in a really awesome group, and it was actually the Instance Podcasts Guild, which I learned about from watching or listening to the Instance, and that's Scott Johnson and at the time Randy Jordan, who is now working for Blizzard. It was their guild, which is still around to this day actually, and I'm still in it, even though I don't play WoW much. I haven't played WoW much these days. But yeah, so I joined them and quickly kind of just made some friends and made some really cool friends. They were really awesome people there, and I became very close with a number of them, and they were really cool. They taught me more about the game. They taught me how to play my character better, and I explained to them that I had a vision problem, and they were really cool with it, and I learned more about the game and started to get into raiding. That was around the time of Ulduar. When Ulduar came out is when I first started to get into raiding, and so I had a raid team, and I had friends that I would talk to every single day. Like, I went from having really no one to talk to having a bunch of people that were always around and always available. Like, we would hop into Ventrio and just talk all the time, and I don't know if they know how much of an impact that they had on my life at the time, because I was so lost and felt trapped and felt scared and felt alone. And they were like a beacon of light in that hard, dark time. And they meant so much to me. And even though like I don't see or talk to a lot of them now, I keep up with a couple of them. But even though I don't see a lot of them now, because so many, like, we've all moved on in life, they still have a place in my heart, and I'll never forget them because of how big of an impact they had on my life. And some of them knew a little bit about what was going on in my life, but I don't think they truly knew how much of an impact they had. Just having people that I could, escape with and just hang out with and be social with and talk about stuff with was awesome. And there were so many late night just hanging out, in my room on Ventrio, talking to people, and it was awesome. And it got me through such a hard time because while that was going on, I finished school, I became a licensed minister, and that was cool, but I was still trying to figure out what to do next. And unfortunately, things were getting much, much worse at home, and to where my parents were, were doing a lot of really bad stuff, a lot of drugs, and it was getting a lot worse, and things started to get a lot more hostile. There was a point where it got so bad where my stepdad was coming to me wanting me to help him fake drug tests. Me, a licensed minister, and he did not care. And it was kind of one of those things where it was like, you need to help me because if you want to stay here, you're going to have to help me kind of thing. And so it was like very intimidating, but I was also like, there's just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's bad. It's wrong, and I don't want to be involved anyways. And like, I would try my best to stay out of things and try to hide the best I could, but like I would always get sucked into something, or they would get more and more invasive and get more and more aggressive and hostile, to the point where there were a number of times where I thought that I was going to get, physically attacked. That never happened, thankfully. The cops were never even called, but there were always like people around that would defuse the situation, kind of thing. And I would always try to keep away from it because I didn't want to have any trouble, because I didn't know where I would go if things got really bad. So I knew someone in my town that taught martial arts. They taught actually Kung Fu. So I went to them and asked if they would teach me, and they actually taught me, and they gave me a very cheap rate because I just flat out told them my situation. And so they taught me martial arts, and I studied for 5 years, to the point where I felt like if things ever did get, rough, that I would be able to defend myself. And it was a horrible thing, like, for feeling like you might have to defend yourself against someone that you were once very close to and cared very much about. And it was very scary, but I kept going. And I think what made this time so difficult is, like, I'm getting through it as quickly as I can, but I'm talking about a series of years, like several years. I think like the whole ordeal was like 6 years of my life where I felt trapped and didn't know what to do, and started to see things get worse and worse progressively over that time. And again, things would just keep getting more, more scary, more hostile. And, my stepdad was threatening to, come into my room and mess with my stuff when I wasn't around. And it just for some reason, he just got more aggressive towards me. Like I didn't know what to do. And eventually everything kind of boiled over where I called a family member and they came and got me, and I left. And then I never went back because my uncle was tired of seeing what I was going through, and he let me come and stay with him. So I stayed with him for a couple of months, and then I moved out on my own. He kind of gave me like a crash course lesson in life, and we figured out a way for me to be independent, and I got there. And then, of course, it was just kind of trial by fire, just figuring life out. And at that time, again, even though it was like I felt free, I was still scared. And again, I had my WoW friends, and I had WoW there to help me, because like when I first moved out, I didn't have anything. Like I had a day bed, a desk, a TV, and a computer, and that was it. And so like when I moved out, I had like my friends, like, they sent me like housewarming gifts, stuff like that. And like they were there for me to like reassure me like, hey man, everything's going to be fine. You're going to get through it. And just being there, I remember the night I moved out was the night that Diablo 3 came out, and we were all like dealing with Error 37 and celebrating me being independent, and that kind of thing. And so it was really special. And again, like I don't know where I would be if I didn't have those friends, because whether it was like in the really dark time where I felt trapped and I didn't know where I was going, like I had friends there that helped me through it. I had WoW there to help me escape and to kind of ease me and give me a place to, like a sanctuary. Like I think I really did retreat into the game, and for better or for worse, for some people that might be bad. In my situation, it was the best thing for me, I think, at that time. And, and then when I got out and I was still scared, I had a support system. I had friends that were there to just hang out with me and just, give me people to talk to and stuff while I was figuring my life out. And like, it wasn't like the answer to everything, but it bought me time and gave me a little bit of peace and comfort during a very difficult time. And there are times like, I don't know what would have happened, but there are times where I think that like, almost like World of Warcraft kind of saved my life because of what it helped get me through, And so I guess like what I'll say first thing is, if you're playing this game, or no matter what game you're playing, if you've got people that you play with, people that you've met online in WoW, never, always remember that you never know what they're going through. You never know what struggles they might be having and what they're going through. And you might be a beacon of light into their life just by being their friend, just by playing the game with them. So always try to remember that there really are, I know it's a cliche, but there really are people on the other side of those characters, and you never know what battle they're facing in life, and you might be their hope, their light, their comfort, and their support. And I'm not saying that you have to be that, but I'm saying that just by being there, you can be a help to people who are struggling. So never forget that, and always remember, what maybe they're not healing as well as you'd like them to, or they're not doing as much damage or whatever it is, but just always try to treat them with respect, because you never know what they're going through. And that's one of the things I think why I cared so much about the social aspect to that game, to WoW, is because if it hadn't been for that, I don't know where I'd be right now. I don't know where I would have ended up. I don't know what I would have done. And so WoW really saved me in a really hard time, and the people that I met were there when I needed people the most to be there, So that was kind of a thing. And I think the other thing is, that was back then. That was a little over 10 years ago. Now, in my life, 10 years ago, I didn't know where I would be. I had pretty much nothing to my name. It was just me in an apartment. And here I am today. I have everything I could ever want. I have an amazing, beautiful wife, an incredible son, and even an awesome dog that I love very much, and a home of my own, a home of our own. I have a family. I have love. I have a peaceful home. I don't need to escape anymore. I don't need to run away from my life anymore. I don't need to hide. But I still like to visit WoW because, it still kind of feels like home. It still feels like a place that I like to visit and spend time in. And even though I don't play it now like I used to, and I might take more breaks and I have a lot more cool things going on in life, I'm still thankful for it, and I'm still happy to see that it's there because it's just a special game to me. So I guess the other thing I can say is no matter where you are in your life, you might be going through dark times, but dark times often, they might last for a while, but they're not going to last forever. If you can hold on to hope and hold on to the belief that things can get better and you can overcome, you never know what life is going to bring you, because I got to tell you, my life is incredible now. And I mean that with the utmost sincerity. I don't want to get preachy here. I don't want to push my beliefs off on anybody, but I have faith. I believe in a God, and I do believe in miracles. And I think that my life is a miracle where I am now. And I think part of that is because of WoW getting me through a really hard time. So I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to share that. I'm sorry if it was a little bit too personal or a little too real, but yeah, I just want to say thank you. And even to some of the comments that I've gotten in my videos over the years from people that have said very encouraging things, like, you don't know how much it means. So I hope that I can encourage back, that, wherever you are in life, wherever you are at right now, never give up. Things can get better. Things will get better. You never know what life is going to bring, and, people are going through things much worse than what I went through, and what I went through was pretty bad, but, I do believe that there is hope for pretty much everybody. So, yeah, and, again, hang on to your friends and be good to people in your life, and the people that you meet in games, because you never know what you could mean to those people. So, yeah, either way, guys, I just wanted to share that, how WoW kind of saved my life in a really hard time. And, yeah, so I hope I didn't get too preachy or too annoying or too personal, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was encouraging, and, yeah, thank you guys so much for being a part of my channel, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button, and feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.